Hey guys, so this is Josh with Midnight Auto Repair, coming back to you on another day of the 53 Buick. Not just any day, but Labor Day, because I felt like putting in some labor for you guys. But we're going to go through and we're actually going to make the fuel system work today. Now, this is becoming a series of videos that will eventually lead up to this thing being functionally good enough to go down the road, stop, turn. You know, we might put some shine juice on it. We're definitely going to power wash it. You know, we're going to clean it up as best as we can because it's been 30 years and, you know, we're both kind of anxious to take it down the road, but we also want to do it safely. So hang with me, guys, and we'll be right back. Alright, as you can see, first off, I'm trying out a new camera, so bear with me. But Jim has been plugging along on it during this week. So he got the wheels off, he actually got the drums off, got everything turned and all nice and shiny. But we're still waiting on some brake parts, so that one's going to have to wait until next week. But I wanted to, I guess, give you guys another walk around the car now that we've got everything off. You know, it's actually kind of cool because this has almost like the GM style studs that thread into the hub instead of having the studs sticking out of the hub, which is pretty cool. And you know, here's the trunk. I didn't get a chance to show you guys on the last video, which, by the way, I appreciate everybody who's been watching because that video is doing very well and I want to thank every single one of you for that. But yeah, here's the trunk, here's the side of the car, and we are going to wander through. I will give you a little bit better view under the hood. Now we believe this is a 268 cubic inch inline 8, which these are all known for. Apparently, if you guys can see it here, this manifold is cracked all the way around, so it's probably got a slight vacuum leak that we're going to have to address at some point. I don't know if I'm going to come through and braze it or if I'm going to put a little JB Weld at it. But you see too, it's got this nice clear sediment bowl, which I believe dates back to right about this time. So I don't know if that's a factory option or not. But like I was telling you guys in the last video, it's got a little starter switch right here. And you can see it's got a contact on both sides of the switch, and then there's a check ball in there. And when the engine's off, and you push the accelerator pedal down, it'll engage the starter. Then once the engine's running, the vacuum pulls that check ball out of the way, and then you can use the throttle and not have it try to re-engage the starter. It's kind of a nifty little setup. But today what we're going to do is we are going to get the fuel tank reattached back here, because if we crawl under the car and look and see, we've got a fuel tank that's just kind of being held on by one lonely strap. Jim had drained the tank and got 4 or 5 gallons worth of the finest high quality varnish that money can buy. And I figured I'd actually show you a sample of just how bad that was. I don't know if you can see in the bottom or not, but there's a lot of sediment that came out, and that was what I got out when we first started it and we're priming the fuel system. But what we're going to do is we are going to get that fuel tank reattached. Then we are going to take the one soft section, which is also leaking, by the way, clear inline filter. That way, not only can we keep an eye on what's actually coming out of the tank, because even though we drained it, there's still a bunch of shit in there that needs to be flushed out. So this kind of helps us keep an eye on everything. Fresh, pliable, rubber hose, because, you know, old hose never works well. And even though it's not fuel injection, I always use fuel injection clamps, just because they don't bite the hose. They squeeze it and they apply even pressure all the way across. But yeah, give me a couple minutes here. I'll bring you guys in. We'll go from there. All right, guys. So we're going to get under here, and the first thing we're going to do is we're not dropping the tank, because I know that the lines coming off the tank aren't leaking yet. So those are famous last words, usually. But in this case, we're going to support the one side of the tank that's actually had the strap that came off, and I'm not sure if it rotted or not, because it doesn't really look like there's any spot where it would have rotted out. Maybe the bolt or the hook end did, but we are going to run this under here and try to support the tank and see if we can get this to work. Yeah. Oh, by the way, don't expect to do this and remain clean. That's optimism that ain't gonna pay off for you in the long run. But we got new straps here, so the other thing too is they're not bent to where they need to be yet. So that's kind of what we've got to do here, is get it not only bent but pulled to where we need to flex it. And the best thing to do is just try to apply even pressure on this. That way you can start flexing it and folding it where it needs to go. And when you get it close enough, you might be able to run our hook in there and see if maybe, just maybe, we can get something that'll hold the tank up. But I'm gonna spare you from the obscenity that I'm about to put out, so I'll come back with you when I get both these straps on. Alright guys, so we have the gas tank straps on here, which I had to use a floor jack and kind of form them into shape. So now we're going to put about 5 gallons of fuel in this tank, make sure obviously it's holding fuel. Then we're going to move up to the next position, and we're going to take the rubber section of line that's built into it, and we are going to cut that because it's already leaking, so we've got to get it out of there anyhow. And what we're going to do is we're going to put that inline filter in there so we have something to work with, you know, in case there's still a bunch of garbage in this tank, which even though we've drained it and we got a bunch of that stuff out, I'm still sure that there's quite a bit in there. So we want to make sure we catch that before it hits the carburetor, because the mold sediment bowls, they're good, but we also don't want to overwhelm it with, you know, 30 years worth of junk that's in the tank. So stay tuned, we'll move to the next position. GoPro. Alright guys, so we're going to put fuel in the tank here, and we are going to see if it stays in it or if it starts working its way out. Take a quick moment, make sure you don't have any fuel that's not coming out of the gas can hitting the ground, which seems to be holding fuel. We're almost 5 gallons deep on this. I'm gonna call that good for the moment because we don't know how good that seam is on that tank. And again, I have no idea where the fuel lid is on this, but, or at least the fuel lid is for it. So we're just going to create one hell of an evap leak. But I wanted to show that we put fuel in, we don't have anything leaking out. So we are going to move to the next position. We're going to try to get that rubber section line out, so stay tuned. All right guys, so we're back underneath the vehicle here, and I don't know how well the lighting's going to show you, but I'm going to show you this line that is coming out of the fuel tank. So we ran it, we didn't have the line hooked up to the carburetor, but we did have it hooked to the pump. As you can see, that rubber line, well, it gave its all, but we're going to go through, we're going to see if we can get this union undone, and then I'm going to have to drop one of the bolts out of the oil pan so we can get in there and pull this line out. And then we're going to take this rubber hose. Not only are we going to eliminate this section of hose and replace it, but we're also going to put an inline filter in there just to catch the random garbage that comes out, because it's not going to be pretty. But till then, we're just going to get to it. All right guys, so I wanted to point out something. So this car is 1953. I'm going to assume that this fuel line has never been off. So I put a 9/16 and a ½ inch on it, and I was able to get this line fitting to come free. Well, that goes to show you the benefits of indoor storage over the long course of time. So I just wanted to take a moment and show you guys that, because I'm impressed, because that should have not worked, and not that well. But part of the adventure we go through. I also noticed, if you look under here, you can see the rear main seal's been weeping just a bit because it's on the floor. There's a puddle from the brake line blowing out as we were trying to get the master to function. But at this point, right now, we're just going with getting this apart, and then I have to undo this fitting up here because it's kind of clamping this fuel line to this section of line. And in doing that, I can pull out this whole section and we can do it on the bench top. That way I don't have to sit there and be cramped underneath the car trying to accomplish that. Varnish. Yum. Only the finest. So, I'll be back. Alright, so we're in here. We're going to take this little retainer off that's hooked to the vent tube. And when I say vent tube, I mean vent tube for crankcase ventilation, because back then they did not have a PCV valve. It literally vented crankcase pressure right out into the atmosphere. So I guess maybe there's a reason they had to come up with a new version. But there's our hard metal line with a rubber section. I wanted to show you guys that. We're going to take it over to the bench top and we're going to fix it properly. Alright guys, so I'm back. I wanted to show you. So this is the section of line. Here's the new rubber hose. But I kind of wanted to bring you in on why I use fuel injection clamps instead of just regular worm clamps. I like these because they don't bite into the hose. Like if you use a worm clamp and you over tighten it, next thing you know you start seeing the rubber coming out of all the little slots on the worm clamp, and what that does is that actually tears up the outside layer of the hose and compromises it. Not only that, if you get a lot of flex back and forth, it could create a sharp spot where it's going to start cutting that line right there. Whereas if you look at this, you can see that the lips on this are actually rolled up on both sides. So not only does it create a very good even force across the whole section of the hose, but it's also rounded so it doesn't actually eat into it. But I wanted to show you guys why I use these instead of worm clamps, because worm clamps are cheaper, these are better. What would you rather do? Alright guys, we're back. I wanted to show you the end result of all our hard work and setup here is we actually have a line that doesn't look like it's terribly cobbled on there, but you will notice that I didn't end up reusing the threaded fitting. I actually just slid it over and clamped it. I'm not going to screw with that because say we do get this thing to a point where we want to put this back to an original state, I still can. I still have the fittings and everything that I can press and crimp on there. But for now, we've got that. We've got fuel in the tank. We've got a tank that's actually set up. So I'm going to drop a battery in this thing and we are going to see if it'll feed on its own supply and what's coming out of the tank. So I've got one little fitting left to tighten down under here. So we'll clamp this guy back under here where it'll do the best good. Close enough. And then we'll come down to the great pile of wrenches. Almost I left that one up here. Come down, grab the 1/2-inch wrench. And I don't know if you can see what I'm tightening or not, but we are going to get that settled all the way in. And just see if we can get some signs of life coming from the factory gas tank, because that'll make this so much easier for the first run to not have to bottle feed it. I'm just scared of what's actually in the tank because I know what fuel came out of there, it wasn't good. So give me a minute, I'll be back. Alright guys, we're gonna get ready to crank her over on 6 volts. So give her a shot of that. See if we can't get some fuel that's still coming from the Nope. Let's see here. So she does run. Starting to see something that looks like gasoline coming up through that filter. So it's gotta be close. It's filling up the filter down there. Oh, look at that juicy kind of nastiness coming. It's almost there. We're almost there. Sediment bowl's almost full. I see it trying. Here, I'm gonna set you guys down so I can roll two-handed on this particular endeavor. That way I can both fuel it and crank it. So we're almost there. Well, it's shooting fuel. To what degree, though? There we go, guys. She's feeding on her own supply there. Looks like that sediment bowl's already being put to work, but she's running off her own tank. Let me grab the light here, see if we can see what looks like it's coming out of the fuel gas tank. Well, it's pulling something that identifies as fuel out, but not by a whole lot. So I don't know what's going on there, but it seems to be, I guess, enough to run it. We might be due for a new fuel pump at some point here. This one might be just barely functioning, but it's enough. I mean, it's sitting here idling, and if you'll remember after the last video, this thing hadn't ran in 30 years. I have done nothing to the carburetor. I have done nothing other than essentially reconnect the fuel system and flush the tank. And guess what? Here she sits, idling pretty gosh darn good, I would say. Alright guys, so that was part 2 of the 53 Buick Revival. We got to start, we got to kind of start pulling some fuel. I really have to dig into why is it not. I'm going to put an extra gallon in it just to see if maybe it's below the pickup, but I put 5 gallons in it. So I'm going to go over that, tidy some things up, and then I hope you guys stay tuned for part 3, which will be going through the braking system. Because at the end of this, the end goal is to take this thing, drive it down the road, and actually have it behave. You know, because there are some large hills around this area I'd rather not lose brakes on. So this is Josh from Midnight Auto saying, I hope you enjoyed what you saw. Stay tuned for part 3. Like, share, and subscribe. You know, liking it helps me out a lot. Commenting, it helps me out a lot. So I'd appreciate your help. Really, genuinely. But I hope you guys have a wonderful day. See you later.